Once the process has been completed, the researcher may begin again by refining or expanding on the initial approach. A research proposal becomes the most important thing of a research process. Once we have done the review of the literature, we should be able to connect with the established theory and then research. In the appendix, you should know technical matters of interest, whatever is there, it should be mentioned so that it will be there at the end of the proposal for the small readers. Hello my dear students, I am Purnima, faculty in the Department of Commerce and Management, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. I welcome you all to this session 5. In this session 5, we will be having a look at the research process. Now, what is the process of research? Now, let us see what the session holds for us. Now, the research process. Anything you write involves organization and a logical flow of ideas. So, understanding that the logic of the research process before beginning to write is essential. Now, whenever anybody undertakes to do research, so he has to write something down. So, if you are planning to become a writer, or if you are planning to write a novel, so what will be the main thing? First, you have to plan about the plot of the story and then you have to start writing. The same way in the research process also, you need to have a logical flow of ideas. So when you start your research, you should have an understanding of the logic of the research process before beginning to write is essential. So when you are writing a novel or a book, so you need to have an idea of what will be the plot of the book, and then slowly you have to think of the process, how the story will evolve. In the same way, the research process also, it involves lot of planning and also a logical flow of thoughts which will be involved when you undertake the research process. Simply, you need to put your writing in the larger context. That is, see the forest even before you attempt to see the trees. Now, it is just like seeing the forest. So, the entire story should be there in front of you. Only then you can just wade through the story. That is, you can just build on how each episode will lead to the end part of the story. In the same way, the research process also, you should understand, you should know what is the larger picture, and then you should try to find your way through that research process. That is, you see the forest even before you attempt to see the trees. Now you will see a single tree, then group of trees will comprise the forest. The same way, you should know the larger picture before you undertake the research. Now, the research process. So, in this brief introductory model, we will review the major steps in the research process, conceptualized here as a series of steps within a circle, with each step dependent on the previous one. The circle best depicts the recursive nature of the process. That is, once the process has been completed, the researcher may begin again by refining or expanding on the initial approach, or even pioneering a completely new approach to solving the problem. Now, we can just compare the research process to a circle. So, when you start here, again you come back there itself. Here, the series of steps within each circle. So, whatever is the steps undergone in the research process, so each of the steps, it will be there. Each of them will be dependent on the previous one. The circle best depicts recursive nature of the process. So, once you start beginning with an idea here, then you do your research and again you come back there itself. So, whatever is the idea, so when you keep on thinking more and more of the same idea, again you just come back to the original one. So once the process has been completed, the researcher may begin again by refining or expanding on the initial approach. So once you just think about the research process or a particular idea, then you again and again try to refine on that idea and again come back to the research process, and even pioneering a completely new approach to solving the problem. So we all know that research is always undertaken to solve a problem. So in order to solve the problem, we have to have ideas, various means through which we can solve the problem, and then once we start research, we get more and more ideas which will again bring us back to the path of the original step, that is again start a research on the new idea. The identify a research problem. Now the first step in the research process is identify a research problem. So you identify a research problem first by selecting a general topic that's interesting to you and to the interests and specialities of a research advisor. Once identified, you will need to narrow it. So in the first step in the process of research, first thing is we need to identify the research problem. So how do you identify the research problem? By selecting the general topic that is interesting to you. So whatever is the topic of interest to me, I will just select the topic, or I may just select the topic based on my research advisor, whoever he is. So he may suggest a topic. So based on that, we can just identify a research problem. Now, review the literature. Find out what's being asked or what's already been done in the area by doing some exploratory reading. Discuss the topic with your advisor again, additional insights, and explore novel approaches and begin to develop your research question, purpose statement, and hypothesis if applicable. Now, the second step in the research process is reviewing the literature. Now, what do we mean by reviewing the literature? So, once you have defined the research, identified the area of research or the topic of research, then the next step will be you have to read all the related documents, whatever are available related to that particular topic. So, we need to do exploratory reading. Read all the documents or papers which have been published on that particular topic and see what are the various areas in which research has been carried on in that particular topic. Discuss the topic with your advisor to gain additional insights. Now, once you have done with exploratory reading, you just again discuss the same topic with your research advisor so that you will get novel approach to that particular topic and begin to develop your research question. Now, after reading all this and after discussion with the research advisor, then we can just start to develop the research question and also the purpose statement. What is the purpose of your research? Only then you can just develop the purpose statement and also the hypothesis if applicable. So, if the hypothesis is applicable for your problem, then you can do it. Then the next step in the research process is determining the research question. A good research question is a question worth asking, one that poses a problem worth solving. So, a good research question. So, once you are done with the review of the literature, the next process is determining the research question. Now, what is the research question we have to ask? So, that becomes very, very important. So, one that poses a problem worth solving. So, the question should be in such a way that there is a problem which should be solved. So, what kind of a question should it be? A good question should be clear. It must be understandable to you and to others. Whenever we are framing the research question, it should be very, very clear about what the question is, and the question should be understandable to us and also to others. So, be researchable. It should be capable of developing into a manageable research design. So, data may be collected in relation to it. Extremely abstract terms are unlikely to be suitable. See, be researchable. So, whenever the problem you are selecting, you should be able to see that problem should be capable of developing into a manageable research design. So, the problem whatever we are selecting, you should be able to collect lot of information relating to that topic. So you can collect lot of information in relation to that, and we should also take care to see that abstract items are avoided from this research. So abstract items means, so those problems which are not very relevant, so which don't need any solving, such items can be just neglected from the areas of research. Then determine the research question. So connect with established theory and research. There should be a literature on which you can draw to illuminate how your research question should be approached. Connect with the established theory and research. So once we are done with the research problem, we know exactly how to frame the question and everything. And once we have done the review of the literature, we should be able to connect with the established theory and then research. So there should be a literature on which you can draw and illuminate your research questions. So there should be proper literature, or there should be substantial material on which you can rely upon for your area of research. So it should be neither too broad nor too narrow. Next, develop research methods. The next step is, once you have finalized your research question, purpose statement and hypothesis, you need to write your research proposal. So first thing is, we need to know what is, identify a research problem, then you have a review of the literature, then you define the question, and then you have the purpose statement and the hypothesis. Then the next thing will be, you do your research proposal, a detailed management plan for your research project. So we should have a detailed management plan for the research project. The proposal is as essential to successful research as an architect's plan or for the construction of a building. So a research proposal becomes the most important thing of a research process. So the proposal is as essential to successful research. So just like an architect's plan, based on the architect's plan, the building will be constructed. The same way the research proposal becomes very crucial for the area of research. So based on the research proposal itself, the entire work of the research will be carried out, and as such it is essential to just draw up a very good research proposal so that it will help in the research process. The next one is collect and analyze the data. Collect data that potentially relate to the problem. So once you are done with the research proposal, then the next step will be, you have to collect the data relating to the research problem, arrange the data in a logical organizational structure. Then the next step will be, you have to arrange the data. Try to see that the data whatever you have collected, whether it may be in a chronological order or in any other order which is suitable for your area of research, you try to see that you organize whatever the data you have collected in a systematic manner. Then analyze and interpret the data to determine their meaning. So once you have collected all the data, the next step will be to study the data and interpret the meaning of that particular data. Determine if the data resolves the research problem or not, and determine if the data support the hypothesis or not. The next step will be, determine if the data resolves the research. That is, once you have collected the data, the next step will be, you should see whether the data is relevant to the area of research. Then if it is not, then determine what kind of a data you need, whether the data is in support of the hypothesis or not. So all this we have to do when we are collecting and analyzing the data related to research. Then next one is document the work. Because research reports differ by discipline, the most effective way for you to understand formatting and citation is to examine reports from others in your department or field. Now, because research reports differ by discipline, the most effective way for you to understand formatting and citation is to examine the report from others. So when you are writing the report, you have to just look into or go through the reports which are written from others. So whatever report they have written, based on that you have to write the report. Examine the report from others in your department or the field. The library's electronic databases provide a wealth of examples illustrating how others in your field document their research. So the one very good source of research, one very good area of literature where you can get is the library's electronic databases, where they will give us lot of information. There will be lot of research reports which will be published and it will be there. Nowadays it is very easy for us. We need not go to the library also. We can always search in the Google, search for the research report and then write our own research reports. Then communicate your research. Talk with your advisor about potential local, regional or national venues to present your findings, and don't sell yourself short. Consider publishing your research in related books or journals. So once you are finished with the research report, then you talk to your research advisor about potential local, regional or national venues to present your findings. So result of your research, it should be presented in the form of a paper in almost any seminars in and around the state or within that particular city or within in a national seminar. So in this way we should try to see that we are just presenting paper in any of the seminars, or we can always get it published in any of the journals. Then refine, expand, pioneer. Earlier we emphasized the fact that the research process, rather than being linear, is recursive. The reason we conceptualize the process as a series of steps within a circle. So in the first slide itself, we had told you that research is like a circle. Where you begin, again you end up in the same place. So in this, we compare the research process to a circle where the steps where you are taking, again it lands you back to the same point where you have started. So at this stage, you may need to revisit your research problem in the context of your findings. Now, once you have just decided the problem and you have just found out solution for any of the problem, then again you go back to your original area of research and then again with a refined or a new idea, again start beginning your research. You might also investigate the implications of your work and identify new problems or refine your previous approach. So in this way, when you might also investigate the implications of your research. So because of your research, you would have found out a solution to any of the problems faced. Now because of that, whatever the area of your research, you may also have to study what will be the impact of your research report on the society. Also identify new problems. Again, after that, you will be able to identify new problems and refine your previous approach. Now, once you are done with one solution, then you get one more idea relating to that particular problem, and again you start conducting research on that particular problem, and then you start the research all over again. So that is why we say refine, expand, pioneer. Next, we will see what is the research proposal. So, a research proposal is nothing but a brief history or a brief summary of what the research is all about. How deep the research will go, what is the problems are to be solved, all this will be explained in the research proposal. Now, what is this executive summary? So, in the research proposal, it will contain an executive summary. Now, what is an executive summary? A brief overview of the contents of the proposal. This may be the only part some people read. So, it should be sufficient to give them a basic understanding of the proposal. So whenever we write a research proposal, we should try to see that it is more and more comprehensive. That's it should cover almost all the areas of research whatever we are undertaking, and what is the research problem we are addressing. Because most of wherever a research paper is presented, most of the people will just read the summary and they don't go into the content. So that is why it is essential for us to just make it have a executive summary of the research. So research purpose and objective, a description of the management problem, defining the information to be obtained in terms of research questions to be answered. So what is the research purpose and objective? A description of the management problem. So what is the problem the management is facing? So defining the information to be obtained in terms of research. So based on the type of problem, you just decide what are the areas of sources of information you need to get, and then what are the research questions to be asked. So this information must be related explicitly to the management problem. So whatever questions you are asking, they should be relevant to the problem. Next is time and cost estimates. All negotiated aspects including the total fees, payments, provisions, treatment of contingencies such as the client's decision to expand or cancel the study, and the schedule for submission of interim draft and final report. So in the research proposal, it should also contain the time and cost estimates. So all negotiated aspects. So what are the negotiated aspects here? One thing is the total fees you will be collecting for the research process, then the payments, the provisions, the treatment of contingencies. Some unforeseen events may happen. Then what should we do under such circumstances? Then such as the client's decision to expand or cancel the study. Suppose the client wants to cancel the study, then what are the provisions you need to include, and the schedule for submission of the interim. So you should also have the schedule for submission of the report, that is the small interim report, and then the final draft and the final report. You should also know when you will be finally submitting the research report. So all this should be mentioned in the research proposal. Then appendixes. Any technical matters of interest to a small minority of readers should be put at the back end of the proposal. So in the appendix, you should know technical matters of interest, whatever is there, it should be mentioned so that it will be there at the end of the proposal for the small readers. Then the research proposal, it should also include the research design. So it presents important features of the research methods to be used with justification of the strengths and limitations of the chosen method relating to the alternatives. So whenever you undertake the research, we should know how to go about the research. What is the kind of method you are following? So what are the different methods you follow? And also you should be able to analyze what are the merits and limitations of each of the methods, and what are the alternatives available for in relation to the research problem. So all aspects of the research that might be elements of a contract should be discussed. So all aspects of the research should be discussed, such as the sample size, quality control procedure, data collection method, and statistical analysis. So whenever you are undertaking the research, it is nothing but collection of important information. Now when you are going into the collection of data, again there will be 2 or 3 methods of collection of data. That is, one is the primary data and the second one is the secondary data. Now if it is the primary data, how do you go about collecting the data? That should be there. Then if you are using the sampling method, what is the best sampling size you will have? Then the quality control procedures, data collection method, and statistical analysis. So when you are collecting all the data, then you will put all the data to statistical analysis, and then you start doing your research work. So details of questionnaire format, sample selection procedures, and so forth should be confined to an appendix. So what are the sample selection procedures should be confined to an appendix. All these are a part of the research proposal. Hope you have all followed this session of this business research methods. Thank you.